Some say Africa's golden era is gone. A time when great African kings and queens built their dreams into empires, stretching across the continent and beyond. But we say a new era is upon us. A new set of African kings and queens are on the rise. Driven by the same wealth of character as the kings and queens before them. Building new empires of enterprise with the right partnership. So rise up wherever you are, new kings and queens of Africa. Embrace your full potential and be proud of your heritage.
Good evening, my sister. How you doing?
Hey.
Now, for those watching, I don't know what's happening with my camera, but we're gonna let it do what it do. We are here within the New African set. Now, whoever's joining, join in. We made a decision that since y'all didn't join in on time, we still gonna do this show, and so I get to talk more. Y'all just asking the questions. We get to actually dialogue, and so let's see how this goes. Today's topic in the New Africans, where we are dealing with the issue of being in this journey, and having these new experiences. So we're sharing our insights in this new experience, and I can sit down and claim myself as a New African because each day I seem to go higher and higher and deeper in understanding. So every day I'm new. Every day I'm new. I may not be at the beginning, but I'm sure somewhere in the newness. Right. So talking today, what is the expectation of a liberation theology in today's world? That is the topic. What is the expectation of a liberation theology in today's world? Now, we dealt with the issue of what is a liberation theology, so we don't necessarily, between you and I, have to go through it. But would you like to explain it or begin to answer the question? Start the discussion, my sister.
As far as what is the expectation?
Yes.
Well, I think that one of the expectations is you can't have faith without movement. So there's action in it. And I think in the discussion today, we'll go in more about what does that actually look like? What is that? Why is it needed? Especially right now, because we know as Black people, we come from a very oppressive society. So we talked about in the past, liberation, that freedom, foundation of that word, but also being self-determined to fight in this process. And you're not separate from God, and you use that force, that Holy Spirit to actually use your gifts to free your people.
All right, so now breaking it down in the core three, like I said, what are the core expectations that we have when you break it down spiritually? Now, for me, dealing with into today's life, we know that a lot of individuals now have been focused on embracing African spirituality. And some of the conflicts and problems that we have with African spirituality, it more deals with the connection of the motherland, connection of your ancestors, connection of the Most High. But there is no programmatic process to liberate Black people inside of that particular process. And so there's no, because you can and jump into it. You can change your clothes. You can change your food. You can change your meditation processes. But then what is the step-by-step process in African spirituality that leads you to liberation? And I believe that liberation theology, merging with the spiritual aspect of any type of African process, when you put liberation theology with it, it gives the reason why we struggle the way we struggle. Mm-hmm. It puts that the divinity behind the struggle. And so I think that would be my expectation of it in today's world, so that individuals who are embracing more of an African spirituality, they can bring that liberation piece and it incorporates with what they already do. And I think that in today's world is more important. I know we always say that we're trying to, we seek to become a spiritual center for all those of African descent, regardless of what your discipline is, your spiritual discipline is, where it's all accepting, because again, there's nothing more sacred than the liberation of Black people. And I think that spiritually is a major process. You want to take on political?
Yeah, I think that, well, I'm going to take it all.
Go ahead, do it. Do you?
Yeah. So I think you definitely made a point in regards to the divinity, right? You have to have that affirmation of divinity. Like, we acknowledge that we are oppressed people, but affirming that we are divine beings, and then being rooted in ancestral wisdom, tapping into that, I think is an expectation. I think that politically there is no separation. You can't be neutral. You have to be unapologetically able to confront empires. I think that's what we have done historically as a people. I think that's what we will continue to do, is to have that fight to confront what we need. And that may even mean that we have to die in that process. It's not just about, we demand reparations. You hear a lot of that, but I think
a lot of that, right? Not the fact that it's not owed to us.
I'm not saying that it's not owed, but you're just not yelling that. But I think it also comes a part where you have to organize. You have to organize to make a systemic change. And so there are a lot of systems that are against us, and it's not just politically. They're not all isolated. And I think that you have to organically organize to fight against many different systems.
Now, also in that space, because I didn't want you to jump to culturally just yet. Right?
I stopped.
Yeah, I saw that. Good. And so politically, you cannot call yourself divine or a people of the Most High while you live in a system that denigrates your very being. I always find that hard, where individuals can call themselves children of the Most High with no program and no process to liberate yourself from a system that seeks to destroy your connection or your awareness. Once you truly understand that you are of the Most High, then comes the process to make sure that you, your people, your children are governed by that particular understanding. We need to control food, clothes, and shelter. And if we can't control the basic necessities that govern our lives, how do we call ourselves children of the Creator? How do we call ourselves the children of the Most High? If every other being can see themselves in God the way they choose, yet feed themselves, clothe themselves, and house themselves according to that definition, why can't the African diaspora? So when you begin to embrace the spirituality part, it has to take on a political form. the governing piece, that governing body. We need to be able to govern ourselves according to how we see fit. Mm-hmm. And so that's a part of a spiritual and a righteous disposition. You can't separate church and state, because church is your state. Yeah. It has to be one and the same. So now in terms of culture, how does the core expectations for the liberation of the theology affect culture today?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I was saying it's not just about honoring like the indigenous knowledge, right? Of course, you want to honor that. And I think that means also incorporating, as we would say, probably radical traditions, non-traditional traditions, even in a spiritual sense. I thought about the movie, this new movie, Sinners, and you see a lot of different comments. Some people are downgrading it based off of the ancestral and voodoo work that was being done. And some are like, oh, it's so taboo. So I think culturally we have to recognize and honor that knowledge, honor those traditions. And that way you can also artistically and spiritually express yourself. So it could be tools of liberation. I think sometimes we as a people, and I would say even myself in the past, I have been taught a certain way. And like I said, that taboo of not understanding that it's imprisoned me in my thinking. So when you're able to truly embrace your divinity, when you're able to embrace your culture and be proud of that and be proud of those roots, you are then liberated.
Right.
And so I think that when you don't understand, it becomes a problem because you're critiquing the world instead of learning and building a new world in which we can be able to be liberated.
I know in terms of liberation theology, we talk about liberating the mind, we liberate the body, and we liberating the spirit. And so in that space, when you're dealing with the issue of culture, and like you said, sinners, and we do cough back or clap back or run against anything that is too deeply African. And in that state where that happens, that is the manifestation of colonization in the mindset of a Black person. Mm-hmm. When you can't look at who you are and where you come from and feel honored. I know a lot of now in a lot of places, in a lot of situations where this is happening, you see the emergence of a hint of my connection. I can be modern and still be African. Mm-hmm. I dropped that blazer on to go into a corporate meeting, and they understand what my culture is. And I'll have the white shirt, the fly tie, and walk up in there and say, I'm connected. And that allows me to, you see how my big mouth is frozen. And that allows me to embrace everything, live in the world in which I'm living in, and still embrace tradition, still embrace some heritage, still embrace culture. And then also in terms of liberation is music. We got to be not afraid to sit down and not advertise or jump into the music of our younger generation, and being able to try to influence them to say, hey, play something different, accept something different, because you're giving your kids freeway and leeway to listen to whatever they want to. That's the problem. The parenting structure needs to beef up in regards to how to embrace the culture, be proud of it. The way we eat, and that's a part of culture. They say, if you eat toxic, you live toxic. And changing that culture of, hey, the way we eat and the way we serve and what we do that feeds our minds, our bodies, and our spirits also needs to change. And so my expectation is that the fact that Black folk take all consideration, it's a full mind, body, and spirit integration so that we can access who we are. Liberation is not just a political movement. It is a true experience, an authentic experience in the Most High as a people. As a people. Now I know this one is a bit, and so in that space, what role does African traditional religions play in the expansion? So now we talk about, okay, how far can it go in the expansion of challenging Christian-centered roots? Because now we're talking about, okay, if you're talking about joining in with the Afrocentric or more African traditions, how does that happen? How does the tradition play? I know for me, being a Christian means I'm already embodied. If you take Christianity to its original roots, I'm already embodying African tradition. And so a lot of times people don't want to see that. When you say the word, and just because they change the words and try to rearrange the interpretation, but when you grab hold of its root, you're already embedded into African traditional process. And that's what a lot of people forget. Oh, everybody's running from the church. Everybody's running from Christianity. Well, you're not running from the church and Christianity. You're running from Eurocentric interpretation. And so when you look at Christianity from its roots and in liberation theology, which is it from its roots, it's all one and the same for me. It's all one and the same.
Yeah, I was having that conversation a little bit with my daughter yesterday. We were driving home and she had just left the prom and we're having our mommy-daughter moment. And she asked me, she said, out of all the religions, because she does know that I'm a lover of studying. I am a lover of religion. And I started out very, very young having an infatuation with religious studies, sociology, psychology, all the works, right? And so I was telling her, she said, why did you choose the Shans? Why did you choose PAOCC? And so I told her that there were three monotheistic, or the big three, right? We went over Christianity, we went over Islam, we went over Judaism. And I was explaining to her that they all have roots. We all have roots from the source of African theology. And so for me, I needed to be surrounded by a community that embraced and honored history, right? And so, and again, so the role in African traditional, it's everywhere. Right, it's in all of those three religions that I actually named, and so I think that the challenge is kind of what you said before. It's really challenging the mindset of people and the dogma that they've been taught. They've been taught that it's not centered in African tradition. So, and I think that you and I were speaking last week. I feel like I'm about to lose my charger. I'm gonna have to step away and get a new one. But we were speaking last week in regards to African people understanding their divinity and knew that they could find power within God. And I think that was right after us discussing like the tree of life last week. And so in that aspect of it, hold on.
Okay.
It's about to die. 1 second.
It's okay. So for me, one of the things also, when we talk about what is the role of African traditional religions play in the expansion or challenging Christian-rooted roots of liberation theology, knowing that the PAOCC, the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church, the Shrines of the Black Madonna, existing 72 years and literally being fathered or mothered the concept of liberation theology, and having been around 72 years focused on the liberation of Black people. I can tell you in my searches, and even as a member and as a minister in the program, I have never felt any experience that made me feel even more African. Ain't that something? I sat down and said, yeah, I've been having the experience of being fully. Wait, where is it? Well, let me. If you the name on the bottom, Ajay the African. I have never felt more connected to my people. Never felt more connected to the land. I've never felt more connected to the culture. When we are expressing who we are at the fullest. Now, of course, we go through lows, ups and downs like anything else. But in this experience of African tradition, because at one point we didn't wear African jewelry, we didn't wear African clothes. We did African things. Because one of the things that they used to say when we had to wear outfits, we always wore red and black. Always wore red and black. And in that space of wearing red and black, what it taught us was unity. We had to find systematic ways to come out of a psychological conditioning that we were separate as a people. We had to find those ways and the things that we had to do to get to that point. And wearing uniforms and being accountable was one of them. And then the understanding as time went on, it was, can we say what you wear doesn't have any statement in terms of red and black and that the uniformity? Can we say that what we wear doesn't just define whether or not you believe in liberation theology? And we took away the outfits. We took away that uniformity to see if we could be uniformed within our hearts. Because you can see a bunch of people walking around in African tradition, no garments and spiritual paraphernalia. Yet, when you talk to them about the liberation of Black people the world over, there is no conversation because there's no true concept in that space. And so the role that African traditional religions play in the expansion, it is again embodying the programmatic process that we share. Because Garvey, Africa for the Africans. But the failure of that was the fact that they could not see the divinity in the process when it came political.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I think, and that's kind of what I was saying before I had to run out, and I apologize for that. But what I was saying was, as you were saying earlier, I believe that African tradition really challenges us to have a decentralized mindset of what we've learned, right? Because, and I'm gonna just say it unapologetically, it decentralizes the whiteness, right? Exactly. And of the empire from theology. Because what we fail to realize is
it takes the Eurocentric images and interpretation out of your faith.
Yeah. And because it is definitely it is a system. It is a system that has systematically oppressed our people in the way that it was been traditionally taught in its whiteness. Mm-hmm. And so therefore that challenges it to be decentralized. And I think that because when you put the divinity in it, you understand that there are many different tongues within that African culture. There's no one set way.
Right.
You can be able to look back at many different, nations that we know of, whether it's been Nubian, where it's been Kemet, where you understand that and like that's what I was saying, they understood the power within them and that they were not separate from God. You don't get that in this white Christianity. So therefore,
and it's not. Not only you don't get it in white Christianity, you don't get it in anything that is governed by a Eurocentric mindset.
Absolutely.
Right. So you can take, even if it's not, if it's not Christianity. So you sit down in Amish. You can't find yourself, your identity of who you are. And like you said, embracing some of the traditions that we have coming out of the motherland in spiritual practices, it helps what we used to call deniggerizing you, deconditioning your mindset, and embracing what God placed inside of you and your DNA and your people and your culture. It pulls you out of that and makes you feel more of yourself. And that's why it has to be incorporated. One sister said previously before, she asked me years ago, she said, do you believe in a conscious Christian? Do you believe that can exist? Because she couldn't find a place that fit how she was. And I smiled, I laughed. I said, yeah, you just messed. Yeah, if you have never met
one,
right, you met the most powerful one now, and real. And so a lot of times people don't want you to shake their faith that, oh, I'm it, until you meet somebody who actually lives it. And now you challenge them. Okay, so what's your group? Right? What group are you a part of? What is the program? What is the process? What your accountability? What institutions of y'all building? Then now the questions come up. Am I really who I say I am? Mm-hmm. Am I really who? And so that challenges you a whole lot. I know a lot of people probably question where we come from back in the day when you didn't see the African culture, but if you walked in the building, you felt the African spirit. And that's something that could not be. You can't fake it. You can't fake it. It's definitely transforming, and it definitely pulls you home. Definitely pulls you home.
It definitely does. I mean, I've shared this plenty of times, or maybe I haven't. The first time I walked into our community, I feel so proud saying that, our community, right?
Go ahead, New African.
New African. I was skeptical, right? Because I was like, is this true? What is going to go on here? And I came by myself because I said, okay, I have to see what is going on first before I introduce my children into this new world. Into the experience. And of course, the hospitality was amazing. And I hadn't received that. And I can honestly say it's because we are communal and because we come from an African tradition. So it's nothing but love, right? It's rooted in love. But then also what I saw was power. And what I also saw was...
Wait. Define power.
Really? So I'm not talking about like hierarchy of abuse of power. I'm talking about actually someone walking. You felt divinity. You felt like reverence. That is what I'm talking about. And
I only asked you to do that because I always, even in our own home, I get mad when someone says I'm speaking truth to power. I'm like, wait a minute. True power is truth. Power is truth. Truth is power. There is no other experience of power on this earth unless you give it that. So if you voice that you're speaking and you're giving the government the definition of power, you do not acknowledge that that's a man-seeking God that does not acknowledge that there is no power in this universe other than the divine.
Other than
always
divine,
get mad at that. So, and that's why I want to define power.
Yeah. So I felt the divinity in the room. I felt the presence of God. And I remember going to my car, bawling and crying and saying that my children have to have this experience. Because again, with my research of many different religions, this is in communities and spiritual practices, I wouldn't find that anywhere else from my research. Some groups, I won't name them, but the background of advocacy, the not separation from political and my faith in Christianity all merged together. And again, I always tell people, I walk in the room and I say proudly, I'm from Oakland, because we are a different being, because we know about organizing. We know about activism. We know about being proud of who we are. We know our rights. These are things that we've learned. You know, you learn this from your family. I learned this from my family. And so, again, it was a paradox to have that upbringing in your home and in your DNA, right? But then to be taught something completely different. And so once I was just like, I don't know if I could ever find a community that will respect what I actually truly know, not believe, but know. And I don't know if I will find a community that will respect history and respect the African traditions that I know are true. And so that's what I mean when I say that it was so powerful to me, because I left there knowing I could not go another day without bringing this to my family, my children, and to myself, and to continue.
I know, and then on top of that, when we say that it's one of the same African traditional religions, when we deal with the issue of, because we talked about power, and yes, I truly believe that even in a Eurocentric interpretation of Christianity in a Black community, one of the things that when we don't realize it, and then we realize it, the power of gospel inside the church, whether they got the pure interpretation or not, those drums, that rhythm, that experience, you can't get that outside of the Black community. Why? Because it's an African experience.
And I'm sorry, I posted something. It was a post on Facebook, and it was a group, an African tribe, and they had the drums, right? And they were doing their thing, and you can tell whatever spirit, it was just so beautiful. But then on the other, there was a split screen. It was a American church, and it was like, y'all ain't doing no different. It was like, you shouldn't judge. It was something I had shared it with somebody, because it was like, you shouldn't judge your roots because you're doing the same thing.
Because you're doing the same thing.
You're doing the same thing. And obviously,
right. That's the issue of colonialism, because colonialism will have you experiencing traditional processes in a Eurocentric concept of faith, but you don't even know you still be an African. And so in that space, understanding that everything that a lot of things that we do in that Eurocentric experience of Christianity is the same experience that you're getting from African traditional religions. And then understanding the makeup, like you said, the history, our makeup, the melanin, the vibrations of who we are. We are built to have higher frequency experiences because of how our makeup is, and we just connect to that. So you're going to see those African moments in a Eurocentric environment. But the thing is, slowly turning. I think more information is being let loose into the world with this age of information, and more people are understanding that my Christian experiences are literally more African than they are European.
Yeah.
So that's coming.
And I think that goes back to what we talk about, it being global. And I think whether you're listening or integrating any type of African cosmology, whether it's Islamic resistance movement, whether it's respecting that indigenous spirituality or revolutionary Black theology, you're going to see that African tradition in all of those. And so that already makes it global versus it being just colonized and silenced.
So, and then we could, because we had that, and we talked about that, whether or not we were going to do that, but we can speak about that now. Can the liberation theology be truly global? Can it become?
I answered it. It has to be global, right? Because you see it globally anyway.
Exactly.
So and I think whether we don't recognize it or not, because it doesn't matter whether it is Islamic, whether it is Judaism, the baseline of spirituality is African. So therefore, as we dispersed, it is global.
And also the liberation part of mind, body, and spirit. And in that political part, do we see it? Marcus Garvey proved that when you say Africa for the Africans, that is it's already a global experience. But when you take that particular phrase and you say Africa, according not just the land itself, but Africa as I'm not born in Africa, but Africa's born in me.
Born in me.
Right. And so to be able to say one people, one purpose, one cause, one destiny, one flag. Can it be global? Yes, when we sit down and realize we talk about the African diaspora. And I keep mentioning this to a lot of the other brothers and sisters in our community. The biblically it said, I'm going to make you cover the earth like the grains of sand. And if you take a look at it, are we not already covered the earth like the grains of sand?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So then the opportunity to sit down and say we are going to be a people of the Most High. Can liberation theology truly and wait, and I'm gonna do this show because I'm about to mention it now. The face of liberation theology, Ibrahim, what? And then the movement that is happening across the continent because of Burkina Faso. What? Yeah. Can it be global? What do you mean? That could be, according to the way technology is now, it should be a complete understood. Can it? There should be an absolute with a period. The only, again, is the process of developing institutional power. If you're not building institutions that govern the basic needs of life for our people, then it can't be global. But if that's what the purpose is and the cause is, to make sure that we have these governmenting institutions, feed, clothe, and house ourselves, to protect ourselves, to educate ourselves, self-determination. And that's what liberation theology is really based on, the issue of institutional development. Mm-hmm. First, self-awareness of our identity in God, and then the development of those institutions to maintain that self-awareness. That makes it global. I see you as I see myself. And if I'm hungry and you hungry, yeah, if I have food, you have food. My cousin called me one day, and he's Muslim, and he said, he was talking. I was helping a lot of people around the city. I would go to food depots and stuff, and I would get the food for the people and drive around the city and drop food off, right? And he looked at me and he said, cousin, he said when he was on tour, and this is Jalil from Houdini, he said, if I was on tour and, we had a big entourage, he said, look, he said, if I had a pot of soup, everybody had a bowl. Mm-hmm. He said, and then when my pot got small and all I had was a bowl of soup, he said, all my boys had a spoon. I sat down and I sat back, and I was just like, communalism at its best. I couldn't, you know what I mean? If so, you talk about the liberation of our people when you realize that if you got a pot, yes, then you need to be handing out the bowls in anything. And if you got a bowl, hand out the spoons. Powerful. Can it be global? Yes. As long as we focus on that spiritual liberation, that the authentic experience in God, so that we see no separation from ourselves. And then we continue to work for each other to make sure that those institutions stand. Burkina Faso is a great example right now to sit down and say, yeah, not only can we make these moves as a church institution, but we can make these moves on a country level, international level. So yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So where we at? Was that thunder?
No, I think it was my neighbors. Did you hear that? Oh, wow.
The kid running upstairs.
I was like, oh, what is that?
What would it be like for a church, a mosque, a shrine, or a community center to practice liberation theology today and not just preaching. Now, I can, if you want to go, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I've seen both in my community.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen us work it, and I've seen us just preach it. I've seen both realities. And when it's worked, again, there are institutions that service the needs of the community, and the institutions thrive. When people come and they hit the block, it's a spiritual energy that draws people in. And when they come, the needs that those individuals have are met first spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically. I remember when I first joined as a man, I was 22. Look at all this gray hair I got around. I was 22. I needed a job. And the community service center, they said, hey, go see Cardinal Manifu. One love to the memory of Cardinal Manifu. I have his Bible on my altar, and I was blessed by the presence of this brother. One powerful, powerful brother, very insightful. Cardinal Manifu will come. Very powerful.
You said he will talk?
Huh?
You said he will talk?
No, it's very powerful.
Oh, okay.
Cardinal Amanifu Wuganga is his name.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And so when I walked into the community service center, needed a job, young brother, and he had a Rolodex of different companies and businesses throughout the city of Atlanta. Spun the Rolodex, stamped it, plucked it, wrote some information on a card, flipped it to me and said, tell him I sent you. That's it? He said, yeah, just go there, speak to this person and tell him I sent you. I walked up there and it was NTW, National Tire and Wheels. NTW. And so in that space, when you look at that particular place as a franchise or as a company, who do you know and who do you have to be for me just to walk in, say somebody's name? And when I walked in and I said his name, he looked at me and he said, sit down, fill out the application. And he started me on Monday. That's what it looks like. Mm-hmm. Any need that anybody had, it was well taken care of. Any need. When you came in and you had issues with housing and you became a member, and they talk about the economic support, collective economics, and they would look, okay, so-and-so lives by themselves. Give me a minute. Yeah, can you come into my office? And now all of a sudden they're merging people in the community where
I'm losing you.
Are you really?
Okay, now you're good.
You was the one who was.
I think it's your hands. Stop moving your hands.
Oh, yeah. It's freezing, but I'm still going. And so in that space, they would actually connect you with individuals who was you living on your own. Let's bring this together so that y'all can have cooperative economics. Y'all can help each other and support each other and grow within each other. And so beautiful. You got something before when people started buying their houses around the neighborhood. You need something work done by your house. Easy. You were able to call on the handyman of the community, so the individual who was coming to fix your car or fix your house was already vetted by the community. That's what it looks like. There's a community that supports and takes care of not only your adult life, man, but that Akiba Land Youth Program, developing your children to their highest state of being. And I sit down and say this because it was the women of this community when I came in as a full-time missionary. Sister Mother Fundi Olabayo Abanessa Mandela. When her and Sister McKinney and the nursery stood up and said, look, we never asked you for anybody. If this brother's coming into the community as a full-time missionary, and I had been a part of the community for a while on the outskirts, he's making the decision to come in. We want him in the nursery. Them sisters said there's something on his spirit that tells us he was called to Black youth. And I looked behind me and them sisters were standing up. And then the administration was in front of me and the whole community was sitting in the room. And the brothers was like, wait a minute, we're going to put that brother on maintenance. We're going to put this brother on security. We're going to put this. And the sister said, no, there's something about his spirit that he is called to Black youth. And so I was asked, brother, is that okay with you? And I was like, absolutely. I'm going with them. And so having a community like that also means that they see your spirit and can tell you who you are, where you're going, and what you're going to do. And then the African naming ceremony, man.
You know, when you said that, I was just thinking about it. I immediately said, when they see you, because I don't know, for whatever reason, I was concerned about the naming ceremony.
Somebody naming you,
right? I'm like, wait a minute. So legit, I promise you, I had a whole name picked out for me, and I had the meaning behind it. And Richard would have said, I have a name for you, and if you don't like it, you know, you can change it, but I think you will, you know, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I remember closing my eyes saying, okay. And in my head, I don't know, maybe it was an ancestor, maybe it was even some of the older, because I love, as I always say, I love a good elder. So I think I connect more with the older women in our community. Mm-hmm. And they were like, trust the process. So I was hearing that, trust the process, right? And I'll go back to answering your question, but
take your time.
I was like, trust the process. So the whole night, I'm looking up names. I'm like, what could he think? What could he think about me? What could be this? Oh, this name. And I promise you, I saw the name Najuma, which means she abounds in joy. And I said, I think he could probably pick that, but there's no way he would pick that because it's too close to Juma, because we have a Juma in our community. So
right.
There's no way he would pick that because it's close to Juma. But when I saw that name and I said that, I went to bed. I had been up the whole night, tossing and turning. I even woke up, did my hair, all these different things to distract me because I was just so nervous. But I saw that name and I felt peace because of what it meant. So, and we're talking about, of course, ancestral wisdom, and earlier we were talking about that as well, and me just having a reverence for my ancestors and understanding that they are with me all the time. So to hear your name is now Najuma Ibarisha Asia, I closed my eyes, and I don't know if you noticed because you were giving the time that way. Yeah. I closed my eyes and I started crying because it was like, I'm seen.
Wow.
There are moments, of course, that I'm human and I'm sad and I get angry and whatever emotions. But for the most part, I'm usually a very joyous person. And so for someone to see that in me, that meant a lot. My middle name, Ibarisha, meaning she honors the ancestors. What? How did you know that, right?
Right.
How do you see that? I see that God favors you. And at the time, so this will tie into what it looks like. At the time, I was going through a lot medically, where I was out of work from September until recently January. I had a lot of stuff going on mentally, physically. It was just a lot. And it all came at one time. And I was literally fighting for my life at one point.
And wait, before you continue, it was community that we called on around the city, Afrocentric individuals, the African Children's Fund. What was that?
Shout out to the African Children's Fund, Network Fund.
Woo! When I tell you,
that's a whole nother story.
But that's a whole nother, we're gonna save that. Came through like it came with the door down.
But again, and my daughter, she said this in her sermon a couple weeks ago. She said, we are a community that thrives. We make sure that single mothers have boxes of food from the pantry. We make sure that they have gifts under the Christmas tree. We make sure that they have X, Y, and Z. And that is what I honestly, a testimony for me was that I don't even think my community knew exactly what was going on, but they poured into my children. They poured into me. I did not go without not one single thing, not a meal. I didn't go out. I wasn't even without internet. Like, because that's a privilege, right? I wasn't without internet. I wasn't without a cell phone. My family ended up helping me with other things. But as far as when we talk about that shelter, that clothing, that food, me and my kids did not go without anything. And it was because of my community. And it was because I was asking people. It was because of my prayer life, my ancestral Cosmo community that I pulled in at that time. But I was being fed and pulled to that because of the community of divinity, of divine individuals telling me, you know, continue to pray, continue to be faithful, continue to show up and be around. And so I don't even think mentally that people understood that when I would go on a Sunday at the time of prayer, I was pouring out my soul, but I was also being very grateful. It was moments I was coming back to my seat crying. So what does it look like? It does look like feeding people without judgment. It looks like finding resources to help single mothers pay for their rent. It looks like an organization that has collective land ownership. It looks like those that have the black slate to educate you politically what goes on. It looks like a sister saying a word over you and creating a healing circle for you. It looks like people coming in and showing up and saying, I got a bike for your babies. Do you want it? I got this clothing. Do you want it? It looks like somebody pouring into your kid and saying, hey, I think you would be really good at this solo. Because it was so stressful in the home. Because mommy has always been superwoman, and makes it happen. But for the first time, I had to be humbled. But it was the best time to be humbled because I had a community to fall back on. It looks like urban gardening.
Well,
and individuals and men that poured into my children. That's what it looks like. You know, my son talked about that in his sermon. My daughter talked about that too. You know, they have gone through a lot of traumatic things, losing their father at 4, 1, and 11. And having to see their mother go through many different things. And so to have that extra support of a community of fathers to show up, didn't have to ask, didn't have to explain what happened.
Come on.
Showed up. Showed up, right? It looks like Saturday mornings having academic support for your children and robotics, and to be inspired to do a communications class free of charge, just donations. That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. Cool. World we keep land. You can come and we can educate and develop your children, and we're not asking you.
But yeah, so that's what I think that looks like. And I'm not saying that other communities don't do that.
Don't have it, but yeah.
Being able to, I came from a community that didn't.
In that process, again, when you talk about the liberation theology, we're liberating your mind, your body, your spirit, which means that in that process, they see you. They see all of you and provide for all of you. I know in the Kiba land, we say we nourish the whole child, mind, body, and spirit. But then it's more than just it happening for the youth. At the PAOCC, we nourish the whole being, mind, or the whole Black family, mind, body, and spirit. There you will feel seen, you will feel heard, you will feel needed, you will feel useful. Especially Yeah.
Well, another thing that happened. So me being coming as a new member, first of all, I got put as the group leader, and I was like, me? Like, what is that about, right?
That's what a lot of old school people are going to say. Who? What?
But I respect it, and I try to be there a lot for everybody. But I always say this saying of people, when you have it, because that's just me being nurturing, but who's there to nurture you? And I remember just last week, I was talking to one of my group members, and I was checking on them. Hey, how you doing? How's everything going? You know, blah, blah, blah. And I knew he had moved recently, so I was checking in with him, and he said, yeah, I was looking for you on Sunday. I had car trouble. So I couldn't make it. It was the last Sunday of April. And he made the comment, he said, you know, when I don't see you, I know that there's something going on.
There's a problem. Yeah.
When I don't see you there, I just don't miss you. He said, I look for you. And then he said, I looked at the time because I looked for the kids. And I know that the kids go to children's church. He said, so I didn't see you. I didn't see your daughter. And then I didn't see the boys. So I knew y'all weren't there. And I knew something was going on. So he had reached out to one of our other group members and said, hey, what's going on? Is she all right? You know, and explained what was happening at the time. And it felt good because, like you said, you're seen. I know that if something's going on, somebody's going to check on me, you know. Again, when I tell that story about I was out of work for 4 months, but I literally went from the church to the hospital because I went to the bathroom. I was sweating. I didn't even know I was sweating. Right? I was like, oh, I'm just hot. They're like, no, you're profusely sweating. And when I tell you, the mothers, the sisters, sit down. We called the paramedics and took my keys. It was like, you're not driving nowhere.
You ain't driving home. You ain't.
Hospital.
And
for those 4 months, every week, are you okay? What you doing? How you eating? What's going on? What you need us to do? You know, you don't have to be a superwoman. You know, you need us to help you with the kids. Like that's what that looks like. That's what community looks like. That's what Christian theology looks like.
True nation building, true community building, true family. You name it, whatever you missing is complete and it is full. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the last one, not least, because when you're seen and you're feeling whole, there should be some expectations in our time. So what would be the ultimate failure or the ultimate success of liberation theology in this age?
I think it would be making it more academic and just creating a moment of it being like nostalgic. That would be a failure. Because when you do lose the traditions, when you lose the spirit, that heartbeat, that, as we say, that transformative spirit that is born a generation anew, right?
Right.
When you lose that, that's when you fail. I think the ultimate success is for it to be global, right? Mm-hmm. And in a global world where people like me, oppressed people, we're just not heard. But first we're healed, that spirit, free and thriving. So again, mentally, as we said earlier, being liberated in your mind first, and being able to have true access to living. Are we self-determined people that are providing for ourselves mentally, spiritually, and physically? You know, food, clothing, shelter, our own institutions. Are we creating our own institutions? I think that is how you use liberation theology, and that's what makes it successful. But when you just get into the dogma practice of we're here Sunday. It's academic. Okay, we'll see you later. That's when you fail.
That's failure. Yeah. I know for me, being that I've been for the last 20 years trying to spearhead this embracing of technology. So when I look at it, I incorporate what Garvey was trying to do in terms of the Pan-Africanism and being able to hold 6 million plus under one roof, talking about the liberation of our people. And us being in the technological age, this is the success, the ultimate success and ultimate failure of the liberation theology in this age, in the highly technological information age, because it's only going to get more highly technological information, where we can't learn 3 things. The biggest success we can have, simple, and I've been saying it since, again, the development of social media. And then when we hit COVID, it was deeply important because our virtual village just blew. Like, comment, share. If we can't sit down and share this information with people from so far, this is why we came up with Shrine Bilakuta, which is Shrine Without Walls. If we cannot master, and this is the purpose of this, if we cannot master the technology to do seal water, let people know that there is an answer for you. There is an answer for us. We do not have to go door to door, chain to chain. All we have to do is learn how to master. And this is why me teaching STEM to the kids is important. Because after a while, we're going to have to, I believe that we're going to have to create our own ISOs, our own internet software, and our own computer software, our own operating systems. We're going to have our own everything. You can sit down and wisdom a cell phone at. You can get a cell phone and produce a cell phone. And even in Rwanda, they have their own cell phones in Rwanda. So wait a minute, you trying to tell me the Black nation can sit down and if you can put the software together, all you got to do is get the hardware, and we'll figure out how to make the hardware too. But we have to learn how to master this information age. Because you can sit down and literally quadruple numbers of membership in a blink of an eye. If you take the members that are connected now with just a commitment of 3 things, like, comment, and share. You do that, and the organization that we are a part of will transform overnight.
Yeah, and I think I shared that last week. I was talking to my brother, and we were talking about a few things. We're talking about quantum physics and how that operates within spirituality and your relationship with God and your divinity, all that beautiful jazz that we talk about. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, man, where is your church? Do they have a church in California? You know, because he's still in Oakland. He's like, because I might want to go. And my brother is not, like, he is so turned, because growing up, we went to our spiritual, I'm not going to tell y'all exactly where, but we went to our spiritual meetings, I want to say at least 3 to 4 times a week. So it was Sunday, we was there Tuesday, we was there Thursday, and then you had to go also
we
out.
Used to be there.
And it's somewhere where it was kind of similar to MOR, because I want to respect the organization and not name it. Right. And so that was an obligation. And so I think for that, he was like, no, completely turned off. But the way that we have been talking, he is like, oh, yeah. And so I mentioned, I was like, well, you can always, see Bilakuta, and you can go on our YouTube, and you can go to our link tree. And, I was being Miss PR, even though that's not the committee I'm in, but I was definitely PR in that day for us. So I think it is true, like, comment, and share. I know I have shared a lot of things with him, a lot of things with my family. Social media is really big, especially with these children. So you do need the tech savvy youth. But I think also you still need that radical elder. You still need the healers and the farmers and all those things to all make it work. But they all do have to embrace the talents that make up the community. I think that's why it's so important that we, the last couple of weeks, people who have been following, it's not just about giving reverence to the elders, but it's literally wanting to hear their stories, wanting to hear where they started from, because you have to have that foundational information to continue. So those tech savvy kids that come along can be able to understand why we continue to do the work that we do. Because society has gotten us so comfortable that sometimes we lose our why. And even with technology, you lose that why. So you still need to have that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as we complete, because again, the expectations of a liberation theology in today's world, was there anything that we didn't touch upon that you want to express before we get out of here?
Nope. I think we covered it all.
Yeah.
No, man, no last words. I just think that honestly, being grateful to be a part of a community that understands, as we talk about, we don't just say it as a coined term of knowing your divine self, but understanding that there is no separation between you and God. That truth to power is understanding the power of God. I think being able to utilize the tools within your community to get there allows you to know that you are connected to a field of energy, unlimited energy. And so, like, comment, share, so others can join the movement. And yeah.
I know for me, last words is you gotta, if there's something that is missing, you have to learn how to be the change. And nowadays, if there's something that is needed, you have to learn how to fulfill the need. In that space, we do have some voids, but we have to be able. My expectation is to, like we always say, get in where you fit in, and I'm in where I fit. And when that expands, expand with it, and don't be afraid to take on more. So you have to always, in this space, like we've always done, in this community for the last 72 years, become what is needed. If you seek something, become what you seek, until what you seek seeks.
Wait, because that just triggered something.
Become what you seek, until what you seek seeks you.
Yeah.
Biggest expectation.
And what that triggered too was
biggest last word.
Being obedient to your calling.
Mm.
So there are a lot of people that, and I always will say this, that are assigned to certain things and they go into circles. But if you're truly obedient to what you've called to do, that need may be what you've called. And so you can't, I think there's always a system to getting things done. But when God has called you to do that, you definitely listen to that calling. You definitely be obedient and understand that it's going to occur because you're backed by divinity and the larger cosmos is with you. So.
And with that being said, there's nothing else to say. If y'all can be obedient when you hear the ancestors and the Most High call on you, there's nothing that we can't do as a people. With that being said, I'm going to say Ashe and one love.
Love. you.